Mark stood motionless for a long moment, struggling to understand what he was seeing. The sight of a frightened child inside a safe felt unreal, like a scene torn from a movie. The boy's tiny hands trembled as if expecting punishment, not rescue. Mark slowly crouched down, careful not to scare him further. The child flinched at even the softest movement, confirming he had been through something no child should endure. Mark's mind raced. How long had he been in there? Had someone placed him inside deliberately? Every question seemed heavier than the last, yet none more important than helping the boy now. He carried the child to the living room, feeling the thinness of his frail body. The boy was light, far too light for a child his age. Mark gently placed him on the couch and quickly fetched warm milk, a blanket, and whatever soft food he could find. The child hesitated before eating, eyes darting around the room like he expected danger to appear at any moment. When he finally swallowed the first spoonful, relief washed over Mark. Whoever this child was, he had survived something terrifying. And somehow, fate had placed him inside Mark's safe, of all places. As the boy rested, Mark inspected the house carefully, searching for signs of a break-in. But the doors were locked, the windows unbroken, and the security system undisturbed. There was no logical explanation for how a starving Apache child ended up inside the one place only Mark knew the code to. Returning to the boy, Mark watched him sleep, curled tightly, arms wrapped around his chest as if protecting himself from the world. The millionaire felt an unexpected heaviness in his chest, a mix of compassion and fierce protectiveness. There was something deeply wrong about this situation, something that demanded answers. When the child woke, he didn't speak at first. He simply stared at Mark with those wide, searching eyes. Mark kept his voice low, gentle, patient. He asked simple questions, his name, where he lived, whether he was hurt, but the boy only shook his head or looked away. The only thing he whispered, barely audible, was a single word: home. That word struck Mark deeply. It wasn't just a request. It was fear. It was longing. It was everything the child wished he could return to. And for the first time in years, Mark felt a responsibility heavier than any business deal or investment decision he had ever made. Over the next day, Mark tried reaching out quietly to local authorities, but something held him back from revealing everything. Something told him the boy didn't need a police report, he needed safety. So Mark focused on earning his trust. He cooked warm meals, told soft stories, and kept the house calm and quiet. Slowly, the child began to relax, just a little. He followed Mark around the kitchen, stayed close when thunder rumbled in the distance, and even managed a faint smile when Mark clumsily burned a pancake. It wasn't much, but it was progress. And every small step made Mark more determined to protect him. On the fourth morning, as soft golden light filled the ranch, Mark felt hopeful for the first time. The child had slept peacefully, and today, Mark planned to drive into town to find someone who might know more about the Apache communities nearby. But just as he reached for his keys, a deep, deliberate knock echoed through the house. It wasn't the polite tap of a visitor. It was firm, steady, purposeful. Mark opened the door, and froze. Standing before him were three Apache women, their traditional attire glowing under the sun, their eyes filled with fear, hope, and urgency. The eldest stepped forward and said softly, "We have come for the child." Mark stood frozen in the doorway, unable to speak. The child, who had barely trusted him enough to stay close over the past 4 days, now peeked timidly from behind Mark's leg. The eldest woman's eyes instantly filled with tears when she saw him. She stepped forward, her hands trembling as if reaching for something sacred. Mark felt the weight of the moment pressing against his chest. He had cared for the boy, fed him, protected him, but these women carried a different connection. A deeper one. One that came from blood, history, and shared suffering. Mark swallowed hard, unsure what to do next. The women entered quietly, their footsteps soft against the wooden floor. The boy moved toward them slowly, uncertain, his small hands shaking. The youngest woman, barely in her 20s, knelt and opened her arms. The child hesitated for a heartbeat, then ran into her embrace with a cry so raw it made Mark look away. He hadn't heard the boy make a sound that loud, not even once. It was a cry of relief, of fear dissolving, of finally being found. The ranch, which had felt strangely warm and hopeful for days, now felt unbearably heavy with emotion. When the crying eased, the eldest woman turned to Mark. Her voice was soft, respectful, but heavy with sorrow. She explained that the boy had disappeared 5 days earlier during a sudden desert storm. The wind had separated him from his group, and by the time the storm passed, he was nowhere to be found. Their search parties had combed the desert, believing he might have sought shelter near the ranches, but they never imagined he'd end up inside someone's home, let alone inside a safe. Her voice shook as she spoke, each word revealing how desperately they had been hoping he was still alive. Mark listened silently, guilt building inside him. He had cared for the child, yes, but he had also kept him hidden, unsure of the right step to take. He wondered if he should apologize, explain, defend himself, or simply stay quiet. The women didn't accuse him of anything. In fact, their expressions carried more gratitude than judgment. The eldest placed a hand over her heart and said softly, "You protected him. You gave him warmth." Mark felt his throat tighten. He hadn't realized until that moment how attached he had grown to the little boy, how deeply the child's presence had changed the silence of his home. As they prepared to leave, the boy turned toward Mark. His small hand slipped from the young woman's fingers, and he took a hesitant step forward. For the first time since he arrived, he spoke more than one word. His voice was soft, barely steady, but clear. "Thank you." It was enough to break something inside Mark. He knelt down and smiled, brushing a hand gently over the boy's hair. "You're going home," he whispered. The child nodded, though his eyes glistened with a quiet sadness. Mark felt it too. In 4 days, the boy had become more than a stranger, he had become a reason for Mark to feel again. The women led the child outside, guiding him gently down the steps. The morning sun painted the desert gold, the same way it had on the day they knocked on Mark's door. But now, everything felt different. Mark stood on the porch, watching as the 3 women and the child walked away together, reunited, whole, safe. A profound emptiness settled in his chest, but beneath it was something steadier, peace. He had kept his promise. He had kept the boy safe. Yet as their figures grew smaller in the distance, Mark knew one truth with unexpected clarity: the child had changed more than his routine. He had awakened something in Mark that had been silent for far too long.